France is known for its wine, so if you're curious about what it's like to visit a winery to literally sip up a bit of French culture, this video is for you. I'm going to get right into my top tips for visiting a winery in France to make the most of your visit. Bonjour tout le monde, welcome back to We in France. I'm Diane, and I've told you before about how my appreciation of wine, it didn't develop until I moved to France. Now, back in the US, wine was something I reserved for special occasions, for a party, a celebration of some sort. I, truth be told, couldn't stomach the price tag, and I never really found wine that I enjoyed. But that all changed when I moved to France and started visiting the producers that made that wine and seeing all the hard work that would go into making wine and getting it out there for people to buy. Their passion is super inspiring, and my appreciation and knowledge of French wine has only grown since then. Now, at this point, I don't know how many wineries I've visited, but I've definitely gone to enough to give you a few tips. And yeah, let's just get into it with number one. All right, first, check business hours. Now, France's business hours might not be what you're used to, and many wineries are not open to the public all day long, every day. Now, maybe their store is going to be open if you just want to buy a few bottles, but if you'd like to do a tour or a tasting, which I highly recommend, some require you to book in advance or to come at a specific time. Now, also keep in mind that some wineries here only give English tours, if at all, on certain days of the week at certain times. So to avoid disappointment, definitely check the winery's website or give them a call before you head over. Now, if you have a large group, it's always best to schedule your visit in advance just to make sure they can accommodate you and that someone's going to be there to assist once you arrive. And as with most places in France, Saturdays tend to be the most busy. So if you can avoid showing up on a Saturday afternoon, do that to steer clear of the crowds and try to plan your visit during the week, if at all possible. All right, next, number two, consider an organized tour. So if you're not familiar with the region and you'd feel more comfortable being shown around by someone who knows a whole heck of a lot, definitely look into a guided professional tour. And they're usually a specialized wine company that will give you that 5-star experience and give you your transport in case you're going to be drinking or you're just not comfortable driving in France. And wine tasting tours, they can be found all over France, all the wine regions, especially Bordeaux, where wine tourism is a big business and there are a ton of really well-known wine chateaus. Now, the tour operator is going to have interesting background info to share with you. They're going to know the best places to take you based on your likes and your dislikes. And like I said, not all wineries do visits, and some wines are definitely more worthy of a tasting than other wines. So if you're not an expert, it definitely pays to be shown around by someone who is, and this is especially true if you're short on time and or, like I said, you don't have your own car. Okay, and for a personal recommendation, I highly recommend Kathy and Nigel of Le Tasting Room. They're a tour company based out here near Tours in the Loire Valley. I have no affiliation with them. My family, we've just been happy customers for years. I first met Kathy and Nigel back in 2010, before I even started We in France, before Tom and I got married. And I even did a video with Kathy here on my channel that I'll link right up here about Loire Valley wine. So if you're going to be in this area and you want a wine tour that you're not soon to forget, I still rave about ours, and it was over a decade ago. It'll be complete with wine education at their home. You'll visit several wineries. You'll be served a fantastic meal in the wine cave, and you could even do a day trip from Paris. That's what my family did back in the day. So you just take the train right to Tours and you'll have a great day. So I link to them, Le Tasting Room, below in the description. Okay, next. Seek out smaller wineries. And this is just my personal preference. And let me say up front, there is nothing wrong with only visiting the big, well-known chateaus. But for a different experience, I'd highly recommend seeking out smaller producers. And you ask why? Well, they're often family-owned, they're family-operated, they're less busy, and that means that you're going to have a more personalized experience, maybe a private tasting, and just more attention instead of being in a tour group with 50 or 100 other people. And best of all, you're going to be supporting a smaller business, and you're going to be treated to wines that you almost definitely cannot get back home. So that's an added bonus. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that smaller wineries are a more authentic experience or better than a bigger producer. It's apples and oranges, but they're definitely just as worthy of your time, and definitely just as worthy of your money as some of the big names. And one caveat, it might be obvious to some of you watching, but most French people do not speak English at a conversational level or beyond, especially in smaller towns. So since smaller producers don't always cater to tourists, if no one in your party speaks French, there might be communication problems. So don't assume that they automatically do English tours. Like I said in tip 1, call or visit their website first to see if tastings are done in English or in French and when, and then plan accordingly. All right, next up, come prepared with your wine luggage. This is a great thing that I have, my Luggage wine check luggage. After a wine tasting in France, you're most likely going to want to purchase a few bottles to take with you, but sometimes bringing wine back home with you on the plane, it can prove to be problematic, something you don't even want to try because wine bottles easily break, and then you'll have to leave the bottles at home, or it's just a whole big mess. But avoid all that. Get yourself a Luggage wine check wine luggage. It's not sponsored. I just love mine. You're going to get your bottles home safely, stress-free, especially if you go to wineries on a regular basis. Now, Lugage's products, I believe they can accommodate up to 12 or 15 bottles of wine, depending on which style suitcase you get. But it's also really handy to have in the hot summer months if you're going to be hitting a bunch of wineries and you need to leave wine in your car. Normally, that would damage the wine, make them undrinkable. You do not want to leave wine in the trunk of your car in August or ever. But the special wine case, it maintains a steady temperature and pressure levels, so your wines are kept cool and safe, and that way they're still drinkable. So then when you get to the airport, you just check the piece of luggage with the wine, just like any other piece of luggage. They don't break, they're safe, they're secure, they're going to get home with you. And I wrote a whole blog post on the Luggage wine check, so check that out, linked below. All right, next, and another quick product pick. If you find yourself wanting a glass of wine and you don't want to open the whole bottle, this is my new favorite wine accessory. Should have bought it years ago. It's called a cour à vin. And the company sent me this one. This is a Timeless 6 Plus model. I can't get enough of it. It's basically a wine preservation system that allows you to drink one glass of wine at a time without having to pull the cork. And it's especially handy in my house because my husband, Tom, he doesn't drink. And what happens is I either open a wine bottle and forget about it and then end up dumping it down the drain, or I open the wine and then feel bad that it's open and drink more than I'd like because I don't want to waste it. So there's all kinds of reasons why a cour à vin is useful, in addition to what I just said. But just know that with this little system, you can flawlessly preserve your wine until you're ready to drink it again, whether it's weeks, months, even years down the road. And there's a special needle here that goes through the cork. The cork is never pulled, so the wine is not exposed to air. That's the secret, and thus it doesn't oxidize. So it's as if the bottle was never opened, since the cork reseals after each puncture of the needle. So anyway, you could check out my blog post linked below with more info on the cour à vin. Don't be intimidated by French wineries. I visited plenty of wineries all over France at this point, but I'm far from an expert. And every time I go, I learn something new about the wine, about the producer, about the methods. And good winemakers, they're expert educators. They're happy to talk about their products and processes. No one expects you to know everything, and novices are encouraged to visit and taste by all means. So don't let stereotypes about the French or just the intimidating context of wine turn you off from visiting. Or if you've had a bad experience, try again. It'll be worth it. All right, next, buy a bottle or two. And this is my personal preference, but you're not under any obligation to buy wine after a tour or a tasting at a French winery. They know that tourists won't have room in their luggage, and they often travel light. So many will charge a tasting fee of several euros a person just to make up those costs. And at smaller wineries, tours and tastings are often free. But this isn't set in stone etiquette to buy a few bottles, but come on, if a wine producer spends over an hour with you and your group of 6, you each have 4, 5, 6 wines to taste, they answer your questions, they're giving you dedicated attention, buying a couple of bottles is definitely the polite thing to do, and I totally recommend doing that. And in many cases, you're not going to break the bank. My area here in the Loire Valley, you could get excellent wines for under 10 euros a bottle. If you enjoy yourself, buy a bottle or two. My pick is definitely get a Crémant. It's like champagne, but it's made here in the Loire Valley. It's an excellent sparkling, and buying a few bottles is a delicious way to say thanks. And If you're like me, you'll probably find a way to drink them before you even get to the airport. So win-win. And keep in mind that even if you don't drink, going to a winery can still be a super educational experience. You know, I take my husband, Tom. He still enjoys going and learning, even if he's not drinking the wine. So don't be put off, even if not everyone in your party is a wine drinker. All right, so tell me, have you visited any wineries in France? Tell me about your favorite wine below. Love to hear from you in the comments. And I also, if you don't know, I have an ebook titled 75 Beginner France Tips for a Standout Trip. It's linked below. It has all kinds of practical info for your trip to France, money, language, transport, that sort of thing. And with that, I'll leave it here for today. Thank you so much for being here, and see you back on We in France soon. Salut!